In December 2014, a severed human head was found in rural Pennsylvania wrapped in a plastic bag. No one knew who she was or how she ended up there. Despite extensive investigations, her identity and the truth behind her death remains a mystery. This is the case of the severed head in Pennsylvania, an unsolved crime that continues to haunt investigators. Before we dive into this unsolved case, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true crime stories. We cover the most chilling mysteries and cases that still leave investigators searching for answers. Hit the bell so you don't miss a single update. In December 2014, the small, quiet town of Economy Borough, Pennsylvania, became the unlikely setting for a disturbing discovery. Located about 20 miles northwest of Pittsburgh, Economy Borough is the kind of place where major crimes are rare. But on this particular day, something truly shocking emerged. A severed human head was found on a rural property, wrapped carefully in a plastic grocery bag. The property's owner was reportedly walking through the woods when they came across the remains. Confused and horrified by what they had found, they immediately alerted the authorities. When the police arrived, they confirmed that the head belonged to an adult woman. There was no body nearby, only the head, wrapped in plastic, placed in an area far from any roads or homes. The lack of additional remains only deepened the mystery, raising questions about who the victim was and how she ended up in this remote location. Investigators were quick to launch a formal investigation. Crime scene units were brought in to comb the area for any clues that might explain how or why the severed head had been placed there. A detailed search of the surrounding woods was conducted, but no further human remains were found. Forensic teams worked carefully to preserve any potential evidence from the scene, though initial reports suggest there were few, if any, immediate leads. The discovery sent shockwaves through the local community as residents struggled to understand how such a gruesome event could happen in their quiet town. Police worked closely with the media to issue public alerts, hoping that someone might come forward with information that could help identify the victim or shed light on the circumstances surrounding her death. Despite this, initial responses from the public yielded little useful information. The case, still in its earliest stages, offered more questions than answers, and investigators knew they had a difficult road ahead. The victim in this case was determined to be a middle-aged white woman, though her exact age range was difficult to pinpoint. Investigators estimated she could have been anywhere from her late 40s to early 60s. What made identification even more challenging was the fact that only her head had been recovered, leaving forensic experts with limited physical evidence to work with. The severed head itself revealed a few clues. The woman had medium-length graying hair, suggesting she was aging naturally. Her facial features, though somewhat decomposed, indicated a person of European descent. The head showed no obvious signs of trauma, at least not on the surface. However, without the rest of her body, it was impossible to determine her cause of death with any certainty. One of the most notable aspects of the forensic examination was her dental work. The woman had extensive dental restorations, including crowns and fillings that indicated she had access to consistent dental care throughout her life. This pointed to the possibility that she may have come from a stable or middle-class background, as such procedures are not typically associated with those living in poverty. Investigators were hopeful that her dental records would provide a clear path to identifying her. Despite this, matching her dental work to existing records proved far more difficult than expected. Local databases were scoured, but no matches came up. Her DNA was also analyzed, but it didn't match any profiles in the national databases, either from missing persons or criminal records. This lack of identification led investigators to consider several possibilities, including that the victim might not be local, or that she had been missing for so long that her case had fallen out of active circulation. Another significant challenge for investigators was that no local missing persons reports matched the victim's description. This further complicated the case as it raised the disturbing question of whether she had been brought to Pennsylvania from somewhere else. Without any direct connection to local disappearances, authorities expanded their search to national databases, but once again no clear link was found. The inability to identify the victim left investigators at a standstill. The woman's identity, a crucial part of understanding what had happened to her, remained a mystery. Without knowing who she was, it was nearly impossible to uncover her past, trace her last known whereabouts, or identify anyone who might have been involved in her death. The victim's anonymity only deepened the mystery. Who was she? Where did she come from? And why, after years of investigation, had no one come forward to claim her or report her missing? Throughout the investigation, police made several public appeals for information. News outlets covered the case extensively, especially in the early months after the discovery. Authorities released as much information as they could about the victim, including sketches based on her facial features and descriptions of her dental work, hoping that someone might recognize her. Flyers were distributed locally, and the case was featured in national missing persons databases. Unfortunately, these public efforts yielded few useful leads. While some tips were called in, none of them led to the identification of the victim or helped explain how her severed head ended up in such a remote area. The lack of progress was frustrating for investigators who remained committed to solving the case but had little new evidence to work with. Despite the use of modern forensic techniques, collaboration with federal agencies, and public outreach, the investigation into the severed head hit a dead end. As the investigation progressed, several theories began to surface about what might have happened. One early theory was that the case could be connected to human trafficking. Given that the woman's body had not been recovered, investigators considered the possibility that the head had been deliberately separated from the body as part of an effort to conceal the victim's identity. Trafficking victims are often moved across state or national borders, and this could have explained why the woman was never reported missing locally. Another theory that emerged was the possibility of involvement in illegal body part sales. Though rare, there have been documented cases of individuals or groups trafficking human remains for various purposes, including black market medical procedures or even ritualistic practices. This theory, while speculative, was not entirely dismissed by investigators due to the unusual circumstances surrounding the case. However, no direct evidence of such activity was found during the investigation. As the months passed, the investigation into the severed head found in Economy Borough began to stall. Despite the efforts of local police, forensic experts, and the FBI, no new leads emerged. The woman's identity remained a mystery, and without it, investigators struggled to piece together the circumstances surrounding her death. Every avenue seemed to lead to a dead end. Advanced forensic technology, including DNA testing, dental record analysis, and national missing persons databases, were all utilized, yet none of these methods provided the breakthrough investigators had hoped for. The lack of additional physical evidence, like the rest of the woman's body or any personal items, compounded the difficulty. As the investigation dragged on without any major developments, the case slowly grew cold. For the local community, this unsolved crime became an unsettling presence. Economy Borough, a quiet town unaccustomed to such horrific events, was left with an air of uncertainty. Residents were deeply affected by the fact that a human head had been found in their area, but even more by the fact that no one could explain how or why it had ended up there. The case left people uneasy, knowing that someone somewhere had committed an act so heinous yet remained unidentified and at large. Authorities, despite the lack of new information, made efforts to keep the case active. Periodic appeals to the public continued, with investigators hoping that someone might come forward with a crucial piece of information that could break the case wide open. But with time, the tips dried up, and the case received less and less attention, slowly fading from the public eye. For law enforcement, cold cases like this are often the most haunting. Investigators had spent countless hours trying to identify the victim and determine what had happened to her, yet the lack of resolution left them frustrated. In cases like these, the absence of answers can be as agonizing as the crime itself. Without knowing who the woman was, there was no way to notify her loved ones if she had any, or to bring closure to those who might have been searching for her. Cold cases like the severed head in Pennsylvania often linger in the minds of the detectives assigned to them. With no clear path forward, they become unsolved chapters waiting for new evidence or a fresh lead to reopen them. Until that day comes, the mystery remains, casting a shadow over both the investigators and the community left searching for answers. The discovery of a severed head in Economy Borough, Pennsylvania in December 2014 remains one of the most baffling unsolved cases in recent history. A middle-aged woman, carefully wrapped in a plastic grocery bag, found on a quiet rural property, yet no one has come forward to identify her. Despite extensive efforts by local police, forensic experts, and even the FBI, her identity remains unknown, as does the reason behind this horrific crime. No further remains were found, and no clear motive or suspect ever emerged. The questions left behind are haunting. Who was this woman? How did she end up in such a remote location with only her head left behind? Was she a victim of human trafficking, organized crime, or something else entirely? These questions have lingered for years, and despite all of the technology and investigative tools available, no answers have surfaced. As we close this case for now, we encourage anyone who may know something, no matter how small it might seem, to come forward. Even the slightest detail could lead to a breakthrough in solving this mystery. Sometimes it only takes one piece of information to bring justice to a forgotten victim. Unsolved crimes like this one leave a long-lasting impact, not only on the investigators who work tirelessly to find the truth, but also on the community left without closure. They remind us that even with all the advancements in modern crime solving, some mysteries remain unresolved, leaving behind a trail of questions that may never be answered. But until this case is solved, it stands as a somber reminder of the unsettling reality of unsolved crimes. If you found this case as intriguing as we did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps us bring you more true crime stories, and by hitting that bell icon, you'll never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.